My sweet Morayo, the morning is bright because of you.
The sun rose over Ile-Aje, casting warm strokes of orange and gold across the thatched roofs of the village. Roosters crowed as if announcing a new beginning. Smoke curled lazily from clay kitchens, and the scent of frying akara drifted across the breeze. Women swept their compounds with long brooms, children ran to the stream with clay pots, and men strapped cutlasses to their backs as they set for the farm. But beneath the giant gongon mango tree, at the quiet corner of the village, sat a girl whose world carried more shadows than sunlight. Her name was Morayo. Once, Morayo had been the brightest laughter in Ile-Aje. Her father, Adebisi, was a tall, gentle farmer whose hands could coax cassava from stubborn land. Her mother, Yetund, had a voice so sweet that even market women would pause their quarrels just to listen when she sang. Morayo used to dance as her mother ground pepper, her waist beads jingling softly to the rhythm of home. But fate has a way of changing the songs of life. When a strange fever swept through the land like the breath of an angry god, it claimed her father first. Before Morayo and Yetund could recover from that heartbreak, the illness returned like a thief and took her mother too. Morayo cried until her voice cracked. On the day of the burial, she stood alone, small, trembling, and lost. Then came Ile-Aje, Adebisi's second wife, who appeared with two daughters, Sua and Bisi, and a smile that never reached her eyes. "Ah, Morayo," she said, placing a cold hand on the girl's cheek. "Come with me. I will take care of you. We are one family." But the wind itself knew she was lying. Kemi lived in a larger compound at the far end of the village, with walls painted in red clay and palm fronds. From the moment Morayo arrived, the smiles vanished. Kemi's voice changed like a masked dancer removing her costume. "Put your load there," she snapped, pointing to a dark corner near the kitchen firewood. "That is where you will sleep." Morayo blinked. "But Mama Yetund said every child should have a room." Sua laughed loudly, flipping her braided hair. "This is not your mother's house, little goat." Bisi added, "If you like comfort, go and join your parents in the spirit world." Morayo's chest tightened, but she swallowed her words. She had nowhere else to go. From that day, her suffering began like a second sunrise. Before the first rooster crowed, Morayo swept the entire compound, her hands blistering from gripping the broom. She fetched heavy pots of water from the stream, carried firewood on her head until her neck ached, washed piles of cloves, pounded yam until her arms trembled, and cooked for the household. When food was served, Kemi pushed the smallest plate toward her with no shame. "A servant must not eat more than the daughters of the house," she would say. Some nights, Morayo went to sleep hungry on her thin raffia mat, curled against the cold wind creeping through the cracked kitchen wall. Yet she never complained. Whenever the pain grew too heavy, she whispered the lullaby her mother often sang. "Bi'ithi ba napawo, ozunzutunze." Even when the storm screams, the sun will rise again. The villagers noticed her suffering. At the market, between grinding pepper and selling plantains, they whispered, "That poor child," one woman said. "Ile-Aje has no softness in her heart," another added. "She works that girl like a slave," an elder murmured. But let the world hear. One day, the gods reward kindness. The gossip reached Kemi's ears, but she only hissed. "Let them talk," she told Sua and Bisi. "As long as she eats my food, she will work." Sua smirked. "They are jealous because I am the most beautiful maiden in Ile-Aje." Bisi giggled. "When Prince Adeolu sees me at the next festival, he will faint from admiration." But destiny had its own plans. One bright morning, a royal messenger galloped into the village square. His horses' hooves struck the earth like bata drums. He raised a carved ivory horn and blew. The sound echoed through the hills. "People of Ile-Aje," he announced. "By the decree of Kabiyesi Oba Aderoju of the great kingdom of Olorunmare, Prince Adeolu shall host a royal ball. Every maiden of the kingdom is invited, for the prince will choose a bride." The village erupted like a pot of boiling stew. Women shouted in excitement. Young maidens screamed and jumped. Drummers began to beat rhythms strong enough to wake the ancestors. Sua's eyes widened. This is my chance. Beezy clasped her hands dramatically. Sister, lend me your gold earrings. I must look irresistible. Kemi's face glowed with pride. Both of you will go. I will buy the finest perfumes from the northern traders. You will wear damask so beautiful it will blind the jealous. Then Morayo, who had been peeling yam quietly, spoke softly. Mama, may I also go? The compound fell silent. Kemi turned slowly. You? In what cloth? Sua burst into laughter. Let her go. The prince will choose his horse instead. Beezy added. She will embarrass us. Stay here and cook. That is your only skill. Kemi waved her hand. Enough talk. Morayo stays at home. Morayo lowered her head, her heart tightening like a knot. That night, under the mango tree where her parents used to tell her stories, Morayo sat alone. The moonlight washed over her like a river. She hugged her knees and let her tears fall freely. Oh, Lauren, she whispered, why is my life like this?
Baba.
Mama, I miss you. Suddenly, she heard a soft rustle. She turned. There, illuminated by moonlight, stood an old woman dressed in a shimmering wrapper. Her hair was white as fresh cotton, her eyes gentle and deep as midnight. Child, the woman said, her voice smooth as palm wine. Why are you crying? Morayo sniffed. They won't let me go to the ball. They say I am not worthy. The old woman smiled. My name is Aya Oren, and I have watched you. A river with a pure heart always finds its path. She struck her staff on the ground. A swirl of wind and silver light circled Morayo. Her ragged clothes transformed into a gown that glimmered like sunlight on water. Glass slippers appeared on her feet, glowing faintly. And at the edge of the tree appeared a magnificent carriage carved from ancient Irako wood, drawn by 2 white horses. Morayo gasped. For me? Yes, my child, Aya Oren said. But return before midnight, or everything will fade. Morayo nodded. I will remember. Then go, Aya Oren said, smiling. Tonight, destiny opens its door. Morayo stepped into the carriage, her heart full for the first time in years. Under the watchful eyes of the moon, the carriage rolled toward the palace of Olorunmare. Morayo's heart raced as the carriage rolled across the moonlit path leading to the great palace of Olorunmare. Fireflies sparked around her like tiny stars guiding her destiny. The closer she came to the palace gates, the louder the drums grew. Talking drums, bata, Amelie, each beat welcoming the maidens of the kingdom. The palace itself glowed like a jewel carved from night. Torches lined the wide gates, the walls shimmered under moonlight, dancers performed at the entrance, and guests arrived in colorful attires, glittering like thousands of butterflies. When Morayo stepped down from the carriage, her breath caught. She had never seen so many people dressed so beautifully. Some wore osso-oak woven with gold threads. Others wore flowing gowns decorated with beads and cowries. The palace square was alive. Laughter, music, fragrances of roasted goat, and pepper soup drifting in the air. As she walked toward the hall, heads began to turn. Who is she? A maiden whispered. She looks like the moon's daughter, another breathed. Morayo lowered her eyes shyly. She wasn't used to being noticed. She wasn't used to being seen. But tonight, whether she understood it or not, she carried an aura that made her shine from within. Inside the palace hall, golden lamps hung from the ceilings. Silk curtains danced in the breeze. Musicians stood at the far end, playing flutes and drums that echoed through the grand space. Long tables overflowed with food: jollof rice, roasted plantain, pepper soup, fried snails, and bowls of sweet fruits. At the center stood Prince Adeolu.
Tall.
Regal. Broad shoulders draped in royal ibata woven in shimmering white and gold. His crown sat lightly on his head, but his presence filled the hall like thunder. Every maiden hoped he would look her way. And indeed, Prince Adeolu looked again and again, searching for something he couldn't explain. His eyes scanned the hall restlessly, until the doors opened. Morayo stepped in. The hall fell silent. Her gown shimmered like morning light breaking over a calm river. Her glass slippers caught the glow of the lamps, scattering tiny rainbows across the marble floor. She walked with gentle grace, not prideful, not boastful, only serene, as though the gods themselves guided her steps. Prince Adeolu's heart skipped a beat. He had seen many maidens, daughters of chiefs, princesses from distant lands, but none glowed with the simple, quiet beauty that Morayo carried. Without hesitation, he crossed the hall like a man drawn by destiny. He stopped before her and bowed aristocratically. "My lady," he said, his voice smooth like melted honey. "May I have this dance?" Morayo's cheeks warmed. She had never imagined a prince would bow to her. Yet, in that moment, she felt strangely calm, like she belonged to this moment. "Yes, my prince," she whispered. The musicians struck a new rhythm. Adeolu led her to the center of the hall. Their steps were gentle, natural, as though they had practiced together for years. Her gown swirled like a wave, his steps strong and protective. Villagers and nobles alike watched with wonder. "Who is this maiden? She moves like a goddess." Even the prince cannot hide his admiration. But not everyone admired in silence. At the far end of the hall stood Sua and Bizi, dressed in matching damask, their faces coated with bright powder and red lipstick. Their mother, Ile-Aje, hovered behind them, fanning herself importantly. Sua clenched her jaw so hard the muscles twitched. "Is this a joke?" she hissed. "The prince is dancing with her?" Bizi stamped her foot. "That dress. Those slippers. Where did a village rat get such beauty?" Kemi squinted, suspicion creeping into her mind. "I know that face. I know that walk. No, it cannot be." But it was. It was Morayo, the girl they had buried in chores and insults. Meanwhile, Adeolu and Morayo danced as though the world had melted away. When Adeolu spoke softly to her, she laughed, light, airy, beautiful, and the prince felt peace wash over him. No maiden in the hall could compare. Sua could no longer contain her jealousy. "I will not stand here like a carved statue," she snapped. "Let me break this spell." She pushed herself between Morayo and the prince, but miscalculated. Her slippery gown wrapped around her foot, and wham! She landed flat on her stomach. The hall erupted with laughter. Bizi rushed to help, but stepped on a piece of spilled fruit. Slip! She flew into the air and crashed directly on her sister's back. Even the drummers laughed so hard they lost their rhythm. Morayo covered her mouth to hide a giggle. Adeolu chuckled softly. "Tonight," he whispered, "the gods favor humility." They danced again. But then, gong! The palace bell struck once. Morayo froze. Her heart dropped. Midnight. She pulled away. I must go," she said, panicking. "Wait." Adeolu reached for her hand. "I don't even know your name." But she was already running. She dashed down the grand staircase, her gown flashing like lightning. The hall parted for her as though the wind itself cleared the path. In her haste, one of her glass slippers slipped off. Clatter! It hit the marble steps and shone under the moonlight. Morayo didn't stop. She leapt into the carriage, breathless, trembling, desperate. As soon as she touched the seat, whoosh! The magic unraveled. Her gown dissolved into rags. Her slippers vanished. The carriage disappeared into dust and moonlight. She found herself barefoot near the mango tree, panting in the quiet night. At the palace, Prince Adeolu lifted the lost slipper gently, holding it as though it were the heart of his destiny. "She is the one," he whispered. "I will find her, even if I must search every hut in Olorunmare." The next morning, the kingdom erupted with excitement. Royal guards traveled from market to market, village to village, carrying the gleaming glass slipper in a padded cloth. "The prince will marry the maiden whose foot fits this shoe." Every maiden rushed forward eagerly. By noon, the guards reached Ile-Aje. Ile-Aje was ready. Her compound sparkled from the hurried morning cleaning. Sua and Beezy sat on stools, legs crossed elegantly, faces polished, beads around their necks. Kemi stood proudly at the gate, her hands on her waist. "Welcome, royal guards. I assure you, the chosen maiden is in my house." Sua winked dramatically. Beezy tossed her braids confidently. Then the guard asked, "Where are all the maidens in your household?" Kemi stepped aside quickly. "My daughters, Sua and Beezy. Only them." But the guard's eyes scanned the compound and stopped on a familiar face sweeping the corner in silence. "Who is that girl?" he asked, pointing at Morayo. Kemi stiffened. "She is nobody," she said too quickly. "A servant. Don't waste your time." But the guard shook his head firmly. "Every maiden must try." Morayo looked up, heart pounding. Her moment had come. Morayo froze where she stood, broom still in hand, her heart thudding like a talking drum. She looked from the guards to Ile-Aje, whose face had gone pale, then to Sua and Beezy, whose mouths hung open like calabashes dropped in shock. "Come forward," the guard said gently. Kemi stepped in front of Morayo so fast her wrapper nearly slipped.
"No."
"I said she is nobody. A servant. The prince cannot." The guard raised a hand calmly. "Madam, by order of Kabiyesi Oba Aderoju, every maiden must try the slipper." Sua hissed. "We already tried. It must be one of us." Beezy added, "Don't bring that bush rat here." But the guard ignored them and approached Morayo. "Will you try, child?" Morayo swallowed hard. Her hands trembled. Her breath felt trapped in her chest. She looked up timidly. Yes, sir." The guard brought the glass slipper forward, placing it before her like a sacred object. It sparkled in the sunlight as though moonlight still lived inside it. "Sit," he said softly. Morayo lowered herself onto a stool. Sua folded her arms in anger. Beezy bit her nails nervously. Kemi paced like a trapped lizard. The guard knelt and lifted the slipper. Morayo's foot hovered above it. Her heart whispered, "Could this truly be for me?" Slowly, she slid her foot into the slipper. And it fit. Perfectly. Effortlessly. Like it had been carved by destiny for her alone. The courtyard gasped in unison. Sua screamed. Beezy staggered back dramatically. Kemi clutched her head, whispering, "Ogunme, oh, this cannot happen." But the truth stood shining, undeniable. And at that very moment, a royal trumpet blasted from outside the gate. The crowd parted as Prince Adeolu himself stepped into the compound, flanked by royal guards. His presence filled the space like lightning silently striking the ground. When he saw Morayo, his breath caught. "It is you," he whispered. Their eyes met, hers wide with disbelief, his full of relief and wonder. Adeolu walked straight toward her, ignoring the stuttering protests of Sua and Beezy. "Stand," he said softly. Morayo rose slowly, her legs shaking. Adeolu took her hand gently. "I searched every corner of the kingdom for you. I feared I would not find you." Morayo lowered her eyes. "My prince, I am not worthy. I am only—" He raised her chin. "You are worthy because your heart is pure. Your kindness shines brighter than any cloth or jewel." Tears pooled in Morayo's eyes. Adeolu turned to the guards. "This is the maiden I choose." The guards bowed. The villagers outside erupted into joyful cheers. "Kabiyesi, the prince has found his queen." Sua fainted dramatically. Beezy fanned her with a wrapper, crying, "What of us? What of us?" Kemi dropped to her knees, shaking. "Morayo, please forgive me. I didn't know." Morayo looked at her, and for a moment, pain flickered in her eyes, pain from years of hunger, insults, cold nights, and silent tears. But she breathed deeply. Her mother's voice echoed in her heart. "Bi'ithi ba napawu, ozun zutunze." Even when the storm screams, the sun will rise again. She lifted her chin gracefully. "Ile-Aje," she said softly. "I forgive you." The crowd murmured in awe. Adeolu watched her with admiration. "You have the heart of a queen," he said. And so, With the whole village celebrating, Morayo left the compound that had once felt like a prison, this time walking as though lifted by the gods themselves. The royal wedding. The wedding between Prince Adeolu and Morayo became a story whispered across generations. The palace of Olorunmare transformed into a kingdom of colors. Drummers beat rhythms, so powerful the earth seemed to vibrate. Dancers spun in circles, feet stamping in joy. Women prepared feasts, mountains of jollof rice, roasted goat, palm wine flowing like a river. Morayo wore a gown woven from rare osso oak, decorated with beads that shimmered like tiny suns. A veil of soft white flowed behind her. On her head sat a golden crown placed by Kabiyesi Oba Adeolu himself. "I crown you," the king declared, "Olorunmare, Queen of Olorunmare." The people roared with joy. Prince Adeolu looked at her with pride, holding her hand before the cheering crowd. That night, the palace shone with lanterns. Fireworks burst in the sky. The drums spoke of happiness, unity, and new beginnings. Even Sua and Bizi attended, though their heads bowed. Morayo embraced them gently and offered forgiveness, not as weakness, but as strength. And so the journey of the servant girl ended, and the reign of a queen began. White heavy checkmark Morayo's reign. As queen, Morayo became a mother to the kingdom. She built homes for orphans, created markets for widows, gave farmland to struggling families, and opened schools for girls. She walked the streets without guards sometimes, listening to her people, laughing and sharing in their joys. No one forgot that she had once slept beside firewood. No one forgot her story of suffering turned into strength. They called her Morayo the Compassionate, Morayo the Sun-Hearted, Morayo who turned pain into power. Prince Adeolu stood proudly by her side, humbled and inspired by her kindness. Through the years, the kingdom of Olorunmare prospered more than ever. Travelers from distant lands sought the wisdom of the queen who rose from the dust to sit on the throne with humility and grace. If you were Morayo, would you forgive those who hurt you like she did? Or would you walk away forever? Kindness is stronger than cruelty. Humility is greater than pride. A gentle heart has more power than a wicked one. Life may test you, break you, or humble you, but if you hold on with courage and love, even the most forgotten child can rise to become a queen. Remember to subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.